Okay, this would have been in the summer of 1950. I'd been working all summer for the Forest Service up on the Grand Mountain. And there's a series of fire towers on Grand Mountain. But the extreme one on West Peak, there was not a road that went from the main station where we were living and working. There was no road. There was a trail, but not a road. So we were taking supplies to West Peak, to the fire tower. And my friend was in front of me on his horse, and he was leading a pack mule. And I was behind that pack mule on my horse, and I was leading a pack mule. Well, we were going along on this trail, and I noticed the mule in front of me, his ears were moving back and forth like antenna. And I knew that something was up. I knew that that mule could spot something that I couldn't see. Pretty soon I heard a little noise, and there was a big pine tree right to the side of the trail, and two cub bears came running and climbed right up that pine tree right to the side of the trail where we were with those pack mules. One bear cub went almost to the top. The other bear cub climbed up and then climbed over that cub and went right on up to the top. Well, that pack mule in front of me jerked loose from the guy that was leading him with a lead rope, and there were two big pine trees off the side of the trail, and they were just wide enough for the mule to get through it, and he knew it. He ran right between them, and it jerked the pack off because the space wasn't enough for the mule and the pack. So there our pack was on the ground, all that stuff, and we were not too anxious to hang around too long because we didn't know where Mama Bear was. And so we caught the mule, got the pack back on him, got on the trail, and got out of there before Mama came back.
Okay, talk about, like, how old were you? What year was it? And why were you working for the Forest Service?
I had just graduated from Gila Junior College. That was the last year they had the name of Gila Junior College. The very next year, they became Eastern Arizona College.
So what year was that you graduated?
1950.
Okay, and that's the summer you worked for the
And that was the
Forest?
summer I was working for the Forest Service. I worked the whole summer, and my boss, he got me to do some work for him in the fall because you had to come off the mountain in the fall because the snow gets too deep. People can't stay on the mountain. But we had to move the livestock down, the mules, horses, and other things. So we went up there, and brought the livestock down to the Forest Service. They had facilities down in the valley, barns, corrals, and all of that. So I helped him do that. And that would have been about in November. And in December of that year was the year that I left to go on a mission.
Okay. So how old were you when you went on a mission?
I was 19.
Okay.
And the rule was at that time you had to be 20 years old to go on a mission or have completed 2 years of college. I was not 20, but I had graduated from Eastern Illinois College that spring of 1950.
Well, tell your grandkids about how your bishop asked you to go on a mission. Tell that story.
Well, the bishop one day, just after a priesthood meeting, he just walked up to me and asked me if I wanted to go on a mission, if I'd go on a mission. And back then, it wasn't a thing that they expected everybody to do. It's just if your bishop asked you to. And I hadn't even planned on it, hadn't even thought about it, and hadn't even talked to my parents. And I said, yeah, I'll go on a mission. Hadn't even talked to my parents about it. In fact, I'm not sure whether Dad was even a member yet or not, but I said, yeah, I'll go. And I'll have to admit I was a little disappointed when I got my call and I was going to Canada.
Where were you hoping you would go?
I was hoping to go to Mexico.
Oh, really? And tell them about your missionary training experience, how there was no MTC.
Well, back then, things were not as organized as they are now, and I went to Salt Lake for a week, I think it was a week, and then those of us that were going to Canada, they put us on a train that took us to the mission home, which was in Edmonton, Canada, which is way far north. And this was in December. And when we were in the mission home, the mission president and his wife lived there, and they had children, and you were there for about a week. And I remember when the train pulled in to Edmonton, I looked out the window and it was dark, because the sun at that time didn't come up till about 9 o'clock, and it went down at 3 o'clock. And I looked out and I saw this milk wagon. It has one horse pulling a milk wagon, and I saw that horse trotting along, and every time he breathed out, there'd be this steam coming out of his nose. I thought, oh man.
You'd never seen that before?
I'd never seen that before. What's this old Pima boy doing in a country like this? And in the mission home, we had to memorize the fourth section of the Doctrine and Covenants, and when we could memorize it and stand in front of the mission president's desk and say it off by heart, then he would assign us somewhere to go on a mission, where we would start our mission. And I was assigned to a little town called Pincher Creek, Alberta.
That was your first area?
My first area. And when I got there, my senior companion was waiting with a rancher to pick me up, because the depot was way out of town. And he had an old International pickup, and the heat didn't work in it, the heater, and the floor was kind of rusted out so you could look down and see the road. And he could see, on driving on the way into town, he could see that I was really suffering from the cold. He stopped the truck, made me get out, get a hold of the tailgate. He got back in and started driving, and made me run behind the truck
to warm you up
to keep from freezing. That was my first day in the mission field.
Don't you have a story of those really awful living conditions you had, where you lived in a chicken shack
We
or
lived
something?
in a little chicken coop that had been modified, where it was just big enough for a double bed. And we had some old wooden apple crates that were our cupboards. We had them standing on end and one on top of the other. And we had a little coal stove that we did our cooking on, and it kind of kept us warm. And the snow would sometimes build up on the south side of the little chicken coop, and the floor didn't quite, the wall didn't quite meet the floor. So when we'd have a Chinook and the snow would start melting, the water would run in on the floor.
What's a Chinook?
And then at night, when the stove would go out, the water would freeze. So when we get up, we had to be careful to not slip on the ice on the floor.
Tell your grandkids, what's a Chinook?
What?
What is a Chinook?
A Chinook is when up in a country like Canada, the cold weather will kind of change. You'll have warm winds coming in, and that would start melting the snow. And that might not last very long.
Okay.
But that's what a Chinook was.
Okay.
Okay, there was one person that I met when I was stationed out on the Vancouver Island, off the coast of Vancouver, and we were teaching them the gospel of family, and there was two girls, and one of them joined the church right away, and they were twins, the girls.
How old were they?
Huh?
How old were they?
They were about the same age as the missionaries.
Okay.
In fact, one of them married one of the missionaries.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, later on. And the other one, she was not as refined. She was more muscular and kind of always took the back seat to the other one, because the other one was a very nice looking girl, and she was more tomboyish, shall we say. And she worked in the paper mill, and she was smoking, and I took her cigarettes away from her. I took a package of cigarettes, and
With her permission or without? You just took
I
them?
don't remember how I got them from her, but I got them away from her. And I put them in our apartment. I put them in the drawer, and somehow or another, one of the members saw them or something. I don't know how that happened, but I guess they thought I was a smoker, but I really wasn't. But anyway, sometime after I was transferred away from there, she was baptized. And every July, which was the anniversary of her baptism, she eventually married a Mormon and lived in Monticello, Utah. And every July, she would write me a letter and thank me.
What was her name?
Her name was Lila Semadini.
Semadeni.
Her maiden name was Tilly, Lila Tilly, but she married a guy whose name was Semadini.
Oh,
And she had quite a number of sons, and all of them went on a mission.
wow.
So, Lila, she used to write me that letter every July and thank me.
Did she pass away or is
Yeah,
she?
she's dead.
Oh,
And her husband died before she did, and
oh.
but all of her sons went on a mission.
What, do you remember what her twin sister's name was? You
No.
can't remember? Okay.
No. So, the only other story that I can think of that I should tell is that I got a new companion when I was in Pincher Creek, and we had to teach a family that the church owned a big cattle ranch south of Pincher Creek. They owned a big ranch there, and this guy that was a member of the church that was the manager of that ranch, but his wife was not a member of the church. So we would go out there and give them a lesson. Then we had to stay all night because it was 10 miles, and we were not allowed to drive a car. It was against mission rules. So this one time, the branch president felt sorry for us. He had this old Studebaker, and I was, after the next morning when we got up, we gave him the lesson the night before. We got up, we were heading back in to Pincher Creek in this old car. And this guy, he was from California, and he was a little different. And he begged me to let him drive. And I kind of felt sorry for him, so I let him drive. Well, it turned out he wasn't really a great driver. We were batting along on this dirt road, and there was a deep bar pit. Well, he gets off the road and he gets down in the bar pit, and we're still going 50 miles an hour while we're down in the bar pit. And then there was an entry to a ranch where they'd filled the bar pit up with a dirt and a culvert and all of that. We hit that, and the car went airborne. And when we hit on the other side, he cranked the steering wheel hard to try to get it back up out of the deep bar pit up on it. Well, it turned the car over, and it was on the side, and there was water in the bottom of the bar pit. So here I'm down on the downside, and I'm in the water. He's on top of me. And the old car was one where you had knobs on the panel. There was a knob you could pull, that was the choke, and there was another knob that you could pull, that was the headlights and things like that. Well, my knee hit one of those, and it knocked the knob off, so there was just the metal stub sticking out, and the metal stub went right into my knee. And we had to go into the ranch and get the rancher to come out with a team of horses to pull our car back up on its wheels and get us out of the bar pit up on the road. Well, every year during the month of July, our mission president had a conference of all of the missionaries. Our mission covered British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. It was a huge mission. And we were there a week in Clarkston to go to the temple and have a testimony meeting and everything. You could invite your parents and so forth. Well, while I was there, the mission president somehow found out about my little mishap driving the car, my companion driving the car and everything. And he calls me in to talk to me, and he was real nice, but he let me know that was not going to happen again.
Oh.
So
How did you and your companions get around if you weren't allowed to drive?
we could either walk or hitchhike.
Okay, so
And
that
there wasn't a
wasn't.
lot of traffic, so there wasn't much hitchhiking. It was mostly just hiking.
So did you mostly go house to house to try to find people to teach, or how did you?
Well, yeah, and some of the houses were far apart, and I remember that I got a letter one time. There was well, we had to go all the way up to milepost 0, where the Alcan Highway starts. It was a town called Peace River, and we'd hold Sunday school up there. They didn't have a branch, but we'd have Sunday school up there. We'd go up there for that. And one time I got a letter from the mission president, and he told me where there was a family way out in the boonies that they had come from one of the Slavic countries. They were immigrants from one of the Slavic countries, and they wanted to pay tithing. So he sent me out there to collect their tithing. And I go out there and I find where they're living, and they're living in they had, these Canadians, they had granaries on skids. They could pull them with a tractor, and they'd put them at the end of the field. They would combine their wheat, come and dump it in the granary. Well, these poor Slavic people were living in this granary, and the slats didn't quite come together in the walls. You could see daylight, and they came, and they were so glad to see me. I had to go alone. I didn't have a companion at that time. My companion had finished his mission and gone home, and I hadn't gotten another companion, and so I was there alone. And I told them why I was there and everything, and they wanted to be nice to me, so wanted to know if I wanted to drink. And I didn't really want to drink their water, but to be nice, I said, yeah. So we go out to the pond, and he has a bucket. He takes the bucket, and with the bottom of the bucket, he scrapes the algae back, and then quick dips the...
So they didn't have any running water
Didn't have
in there?
running water.
Oh, wow.
Dips the water up, and then I get a drink of...
And you regretted asking for a drink or accepting one?
Yeah. But on the way walking there, I remember I was walking along this road alone. It was a dirt road, no cars or anything. I hear this crashing noise on the side of the road, and pretty soon a big old moose bounds across the road right in front of me.
Did Sybil write you when you were on your mission, or did you not know her?
She didn't know me then.
You didn't know her until you met her after your mission?
Yeah. I met her later.
Okay.
No.